Today, I want to look at this chord progression, but I want to show you how it's used in two different contexts. Sometimes a chord progression can be used in two different styles or genres and sound completely different in each of them. Let's get started. So, here's our chord progression. This might look like a lot of information to take in at first, but if we take it little by little, it won't seem so complicated. So if we start all the way on the left, we see that we have a grand staff with the treble clef on top and the bass clef on bottom. And middle C will be right in the middle of these two staves. If you're more familiar with a MIDI piano roll, then your middle C should be marked as C4, but because it hasn't been standardized across music software, your piano roll might show middle C as C3, C4, or C5, depending on which software you use. This only matters if you're going to be making sheet music out of your MIDI roll and asking someone to play it on their instrument. If you use the wrong octave, they might not be able to play it on their instrument because it could be out of the instrument's range, so just watch out for that. If we keep looking left to right, the next thing we see is the key signature. In our example, we have two flats, B flat and E flat. This puts us in the key of B flat. This just tells us that any B's or E's we have in the music will be flat. If you want to learn more about key signatures and how to identify them, check out this video here. Alright, the next thing we see is the time signature, 4/4. This tells us that we will have 4 quarter notes in each measure. Now we finally get to the music. This is a 1-4-5-1 chord progression. The root of each of the chords is in the bass. And we have the closed chords in the treble clef. This by itself isn't very interesting, but the chord progression is used in so many different kinds of music, like this one. Here is a 4-bar phrase that uses our 1-4-5 pattern. We can see that it's written for piano, and one of the first things you'll notice is that this bass line uses an alternating pattern. This is called Alberti Bass, named for Domenico Alberti, a composer who lived in the 1700s. He wasn't the first to use this pattern, but he used it so much that people started calling it Alberti Bass, and we still do, almost 300 years later. So, if you want to be remembered in music, just use something so much that people start calling you out for it, and you too might be remembered 300 years from now. As for the melody, we no longer have just the plain chords, we have this. There are two main techniques in this melody line. Stepwise motion, here and here, where the melody is going to the next highest or lowest note in the scale. And the other technique is here and here, where the melody outlines the chords or arpeggiates the chords. One last thing to note about this phrase is that it doesn't use any accidentals. All of the notes in this phrase are from the key of B flat. In music theory, this is called diatonic, where all of the notes are from the key, as opposed to chromatic, where there may be notes from outside the key. You would see that if there were any accidentals written in this phrase. But since we don't see any accidentals at all of these notes are from the key of B flat. So here's what it sounds like all together. Now let's look at another 1-4-5 pattern. This phrase also uses the 1-4-5 pattern. The first thing you'll notice is that it's not written for piano. Instead, we have electric guitar, bass guitar, and drum set. Just like before, let's look at the bass line first. You've probably noticed that it has a couple of accidentals in the bass line. First we have a flat third, that D flat. Usually a flat third tells us that this is some sort of minor key pattern, but right after the flat third is the natural third, a D natural. Seeing that flat third and the natural third together like that tells us that this is not a minor pattern. This is something completely different. To finish out the bass figure, we have the 5th, 6th, and octave. This bass line is using the blues scale. This is a scale we haven't seen before. The basic major blues scale uses 6 notes: the tonic, 2nd, flat 3, natural 3, 5, and 6. Which gets us back to the octave. So in both of our examples, the bass line is very important to setting the style of the music. Do not underestimate the power of a good bass line. Next, let's look at the guitar part. One thing I want to point out here is that chords on a guitar will sound and look different than the same chord written for piano. Let's compare the original chord progression on piano with this guitar part. On the piano part, there are 3 notes in the chord of the right hand. For the same chord on guitar, we see 5 notes. Since the guitar has 6 strings, there will usually be 4, 5, or 6 notes being played at the same time for a chord. And the order of the notes might change depending on where the chord is being played on the guitar's fretboard. Usually the guitar part might only have chord diagrams, like this. But for our purposes, I wanted you to see the actual notes the guitar was playing to show you the difference in the voicing from piano to guitar. So this guitar part has a fairly simple rhythm pattern and is sticking to just the chords. You'll also notice in the second bar of the guitar part, the bass note is played first, and then the chord for the 4 chord and the 5 chord. So it'll play that E flat by itself, then the E flat chord, then the F by itself, then the F chord. The last instrument we have is the drum set. There are about 1 million different ways a rhythm section can affect the feeling and style of a piece of music. For our example today, let's just say that this particular part is based on a 1950s style of dance music. Here's what it sounds like. So here's what all the parts sound like together. Try and listen for the chord changes. I'll also mark them on the screen. This sounds like a completely different music, right? But they both use the same chords. There are a few differences in instrumentation and style, but the basis of these two pieces of music is the same, a 1, 4, 5 chord progression. I hope this helps you see how instrumentation and style affect the sound of music, but also show you that there are many different ways to play the same notes. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. And if you'd like to help support this channel, please check out our Patreon link below.